What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So today is the last day of E3 presentations, which means it's time for Nintendo to show us what they have in store with their Direct that'll be going live a few hours after this video goes up, and I will be live streaming that Nintendo Direct here on the channel, so make sure you come on by and hopefully we'll see some really fun and some pretty big announcements from Nintendo. And I'm also going to go over some of my thoughts leading into this presentation with all of the hype going around online right now. Also, we're going to be talking about that Capcom E3 stream for some reason. Also, we're going to be talking about Halo Infinite multiplayer as a ton of new details were shown, and I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. Guys, if you enjoyed these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton, and if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with Xbox and another game event that they have planned for later on in the week. This was announced over on Xbox.com under their news section. We can see it says here, we are also excited to announce the upcoming Xbox Games Showcase Extended. This special showcase, hosted by Kinda Funny, XCast, and Gamertag Radio's Paris Lilly, will air on Thursday, June 17th at 10 a.m. Pacific. It will feature conversations with developers from studios like Double Fine, Obsidian, Ninja Theory, Rare, and our talented dev partners from around the world. So from what I've been hearing, it's been talked about online, there is a chance that Hellblade 2 could be shown in some way here. The fact that they're talking about, oh, we're going to sit down with developers, and I'm sure they'll explain some of their ideas that they had while they were creating the game, or some of the more technical details. That is something I'm sure Ninja Theory could sit down and talk about, like, for the entire day, based around some of the stuff they are doing right now with Hellblade 2. It was odd that Hellblade 2 wasn't there during the game event that they just had at E3 on Sunday, but maybe it wasn't in a state that they're ready to necessarily just show it with like another cinematic trailer, even gameplay. They'd rather sit down and kind of talk about it from a developer angle and go over some of the cool things they're doing. So from what I can tell, if you're interested in Hellblade 2, might be worth tuning in here. Just don't expect another massive show like we saw on Sunday. Also, speaking of Xbox, it looks like they're going to be changing up their retail boxes. You know, before they kind of had that big sticker that said Series X compatible on it, but it still was using like the Xbox One casing, and that's more or less just the transition from the Xbox One to the Xbox Series systems. And it does look like Microsoft in 2022 is going to be making a big push away from the Xbox One. I think people started to notice, wow, Microsoft is talking a lot about even their first-party titles just being on the Series systems. Well, you can see some of the new box art here from left to right. We saw the new ones, and then we see the older one to the right. It does look like what they're trying to do here is just have it very obvious for which games or which systems these games work for, whereas before it was kind of that small black strip right below the green plastic with Xbox, and it was harder to make out, I guess, that big bright white kind of box there with the different systems in it, make it very obvious for which one's for. And I saw some people wonder, oh, why isn't the Series S? Well, the Series S doesn't take a disc, so obviously you're not going to buy any of these, unless, hey, you never know, maybe Microsoft does Series S boxes and it's just a code inside. I mean, we've seen those kind of things before with other releases, like I think Cuphead, for example there. Looking at it, I mean, I like the idea of opening up the overall box art, the artwork part, to have more space to kind of put that art there, but then they have this big white square kind of in the way. Again, I understand why they're doing it, so it's easier for customers to understand like what they're buying, but it's still kind of an eyesore right there. Oh, and just a reminder, the Tunic demo is now live on the Xbox, and this is the game that kind of looks like a Zelda style game with a fox running around with a sword and a shield. We've seen gameplay before. You can see some of that here, but the demo is now live on the Xbox, so you should check it out and see what you think about this one. They've had demos before. At one point they had it on PC and it was pretty cool, but I am going to download this demo as well and check it out on the Xbox. I'm still waiting to hear about like when we're going to get to actually pick this game up and play all the way through it. I do like that we're seeing these demos release. I think at this point, though, I've been seeing it for so long now, like years. I'm just ready for it to come out and play through it because it looks awesome. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with this Nintendo Direct that people have been waiting for a little while now to finally see what Nintendo has for us at E3. I mean, we've gone through all these other presentations, and I mean, let's face it, Microsoft was the only real good one. Like, all the other ones are certainly underwhelming and forgettable, pretty much across the board. Microsoft's was very good, and there's a lot of hope that Nintendo will be able to kind of cap things off here for E3 2021 with some big time reveals. Just so you're aware of the time and all of this, we can see Nintendo did a reminder on Twitter where they say, see you tomorrow, 9 a.m. Pacific time. Tune in for a Nintendo Direct with roughly 40 minutes of info focused exclusively on Nintendo Switch software. Again, they said software, not hardware, mostly releasing in 2021, followed by around 3 hours of gameplay in Nintendo Treehouse Live. So there you go. If you're someone looking for the gameplay, there'll be plenty of it there. And mostly releasing in 2021 is also key. They could, I'm sure, talk about some stuff in 2022, as I feel like Breath of the Wild 2 will be here, but it won't necessarily be releasing in 2021. I think there is a strong possibility that it comes out in like the first half of 2022. Maybe fit right in March. I mean, March 2017 is when Breath of the Wild released, so sure, they could technically drop Breath of the Wild 2 in March and it would do just fine. I mean, come on, it'd be Breath of the Wild 2. I think a lot of people are going to buy that game, but it looks like there's a lot of hype building online, obviously, as we are starting to see things like Breath of the Wild trend online and Metroid Prime 4. Now, I would love to see Metroid Prime 4, but I am certainly not getting my hopes up for that one, all right? So Metroid Prime 4 would be a great surprise, but I would not expect that. But I would certainly expect Breath of the Wild 2. Now, it does look like Nintendo is also sending out care packages to different Nintendo ambassadors. For example, I saw Click post up that she got like this jacket with her name on it, and they had like party poppers and all of this for announcements, I guess, you get excited about. But yeah, Nintendo's also leaning into the streamers and all of this to get everything really going here for the Direct today. So yes, there is a lot of anticipation right now going into a 40-minute E3 Nintendo Direct. Nintendo Directs at E3 typically are pretty big, obviously, and there's generally some very memorable moments and announcements here. So I'm hoping for two things. Breath of the Wild 2, that gets completely established when it's coming out, at least a year, like, all right, 2022, and gameplay of some kind for Breath of the Wild 2. If it's ready to really be played, I hope that's one that's in the treehouse. Like, that'd be really cool if they had the idea set up during the Direct as to what we're doing in Breath of the Wild 2, and they transition over, like right at the end, into Treehouse, and you're immediately seeing gameplay for Breath of the Wild 2, and they run around for a bit and show you kind of the world and what we'll be doing in the game. The other announcement that I think is very important, like key at this point, is Bayonetta 3. Mostly because we just saw Platinum Games show Babylon's Fall, and that did not look good. And Bayonetta 3 has been missing longer than Babylon's Fall, I believe. So, like, there is obvious concern around Bayonetta 3, and that was before we saw Babylon's Fall. So, like, now is a good time to kind of get some confidence in Platinum Games with a Bayonetta 3 reveal that looks good. I'm hoping it's not another Babylon's Fall situation where maybe there were issues in development and they show it and it's underwhelming and it looks like there were issues with it. Now, the thing with Babylon's Fall is it does look like they were pushed kind of towards a live service style game, which doesn't appear like that's how it started out in development. So, I mean, I don't really think Bayonetta 3 is going to show up and say, oh yeah, it's a live service game. But those right now are my two big keys for Nintendo Direct today, is a Bayonetta 3 reveal, maybe with some gameplay, depending on when it's coming out, and then obviously Breath of the Wild 2 being the big way to cap off the Direct with some sort of idea, whether it's a release window or maybe even a release date to kind of lock things in. Next up, let's talk about Capcom at E3 because, well, going by what's happening online right now, this might legitimately have been the worst E3 presentation out of the bigger companies, I guess, even like the third-party companies. I mean, Square wasn't great, obviously. Ubisoft was, I mean, it had some good announcements at the end, but leading up to it, it was like, eh. Capcom wasn't great, though, and a lot of people looked at that and said, well, they probably shouldn't have shown up. Well, you know what? Let's go through exactly what they had with their E3 presentation. Starting with Resident Evil Village, there is DLC on the way. They say due to popular demand, they will be adding on to the story of the game. So that's pretty cool. I mean, I really liked Resident Evil Village. I thought it was a solid length of time for the game, but hey, you know what? Add some DLC in there for the story. That's great. And then we have RE-Verse. That's the multiplayer, which will be starting next month. If you had bought Resident Evil Village, you already have access to it, so you won't have to buy it like separate or anything like that. And then we saw Monster Hunter Stories 2. A demo has been announced for June 25th. So that's pretty cool. Game, of course, releasing July 9th for the Switch. And then we have a PC version coming in 2020. 2022. And then we had a roadmap for Monster Hunter Rise for the updates and even a collaboration they're going to do with Monster Hunter Stories 2. And they showed gameplay for the Great Ace Attorney, and they showed it for a while. Like, I think that was the majority of this entire stream, was them just kind of playing the Great Ace Attorney. And I don't know if that's the best game to demo, because it's kind of like a visual novel style game. And I mean, these games, obviously people love them, but I think people more or less just like to kind of play them and sit down and go through them. And it's an odd one to sit there and kind of show off. And then they capped it all off with the Capcom Pro Tour esports montage, because that's a great way to close things out. That's a big mic drop moment to kind of walk off the stage, is esports. Now, it's been brought up a lot that, hey, this wasn't going to be the biggest E3 ever, because obviously things have been kind of rough with development over the last year due to COVID. So expectations were already pretty low, but I am honestly shocked at how poor the Capcom presentation was. I guess the one positive thing is they really did tell us what was going to be here, so they can at least say, hey, we told you guys what would be there, and technically they showed gameplay for a while, so you got gameplay. They were very transparent. It's extremely underwhelming. I mean, they could have at least shown Mega Man X9. That would have saved the whole thing. Next up, let's talk about Halo Infinite. This holiday, Microsoft is gonna have two really big titles from their first-party studios, that being Forza Horizon 5 and Halo Infinite. And Halo's gonna be interesting because it will be a fully free-to-play game. You won't even need Xbox Live to play it. And what they did was they sat down for about an 11-minute video just kind of showcasing and going over some of the big things they are doing with their multiplayer for Halo Infinite, which obviously for a lot of people, that's what they're most interested in. But we could take a look at some of the video here while we go over some of these different details that they put out there. It will be staying true to the original Halo games. They're still going to do things to more or less modernize it and tweak it here and there, but they said it's going to feel very much like original Halo that everyone really liked. There will be battle passes here. Remember, this is a free-to-play game, so they have to figure out ways to monetize it. What they're going to be doing is introducing new battle passes as they go along. However, you can purchase older battle passes, and they are yours to like keep. There's no expiration date or any of that, and you can choose which battle pass that you own that you want to put your kind of progression towards, like any experience and, you know, all the leveling you do. So, I mean, I guess that's a good kind of compromise here. Obviously, they're going to look to monetize a free-to-play game, so there's that. They did say, though, there will be no loot boxes, and they will mostly be focusing on cosmetics in the game being unlockable through, get this, actually playing the game. So that's obviously a good thing there. Assault rifle, the battle rifle, needler, gravity hammer, and plasma grenades were all shown, and they even showcased a new vehicle called the Razorback. This lets you store your weapons and even objectives kind of in the back. Like, for example, if you're playing Capture the Flag, apparently you can store that back there. Looked pretty cool. And they also showed that Pelicans will be dropping off vehicles in maps rather than them just like spawning and just dropping in. So like just kind of appearing randomly on the map. So a nice little touch there for the details. There will be full crossplay and cross progression between PC and Xbox. You can go back and forth between them. The Xbox Series X will take advantage of 120 frames per second. And on the PC side of things, ultra-wide monitor support, triple key bindings, and advanced graphics options. And they will have a preview program, which will be starting up over the summer, and you can sign up at Halo Waypoint so you can participate in it. And I have to say, as a fan of Halo, who's been there since the beginning on the original Xbox, from what they've shown so far, I really like what I'm seeing. Like, this looks like a Halo game that I'm going to be heavily invested in starting this holiday. I just need that release date so we can kind of figure out, okay, when is everything getting set up here? You know, like how close is it going to be to Battlefield? Because I kind of want to check out Battlefield as well. And then we have like Forza. There were rumors that, oh, it might release on the same day as Forza. That's not going to happen, obviously. But if it's like a week after Forza and then you're really into that. So hopefully they can space it out and find a good spot for it. I mean, the most obvious spot right now based on their release schedule would be like September, but is that too soon? Can they release the campaign and the multiplayer separately? Doesn't look like it, as they've kind of already committed to everything coming out at the same time. But from what they're showing here, I am really excited to get my hands on Halo Infinite. And I do like the idea of it being free to play, mostly because it rips down any barriers we may have, and that includes Xbox Live Gold, full cross progression and cross play. Being able to jump between PC and Xbox is also really cool. So here's hoping when it comes out, we don't have a big issue like Master Chief Collection where it's impossible to do matchmaking and the whole thing just breaks. I have a feeling they've learned their lesson from that one. So at this point, I'm just ready to find out when we can start playing it. And in our last bit of news, I wanted to quickly touch on the limited run games presentation, as they did have a lot of games to show. And remember, limited run games focuses on physical media. So these are all games that will get releases where you can buy them on their website, or at times find them in stores like Best Buy even. Let's head over here. We can see a large list of all of the games they announced. And like I said, there were quite a few, like Axiom Verge 2 getting the physical release on PS4, PS5, and Switch. Blood Rain Betrayal, Fresh Bites, Castlevania Requiem, Rondo of Blood, Contra Anniversary Collection, Double Dragon Dusk, Going Under, Haven, Hunt Down, One Step from Eden, Republic, Retromania Wrestling, River City Girls 2, River City Girls 0, Shantae 1 through 5, Skatebird, Strife, Super Hot. But at the end, they did show off, that's right, Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. It was a really funny reveal at the end to have this, because obviously online, this is kind of a game that's reached like meme status, and apparently they've acquired the full-on rights to Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. It was certainly one of those moments where people, I'm sure, got a good laugh out of it when they moved over to it, as you started to recognize what was happening, and the fact that they are going to have a physical copy released of Plumbers Don't Wear Ties on like current platforms is kind of weird. But the one release that really caught me by surprise was that they are going to have Castlevania Rondo of Blood release on the Turbo Duo. Yeah, they're going to release a physical copy of this game for the Turbo Duo. That's so strange. I wonder how many people have a Turbo Duo. You know what? If you have one, let me know down in the comments. That is certainly one of those holy grails of retro game collecting right now. But yeah, limited run games quietly had a great presentation. I see a lot of people talking online about it outside of like RGT and MVG and a few others, but certainly one to go check out, especially if you're really into kind of collecting a lot of these newer old releases. And before we go to the comment of the day with Halo, the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, what was your favorite E3 company presentation so far? I expected the majority of people vote for Microsoft, 81%, but I was kind of curious where some of the other companies would land with, hey, Devolver Digital Games coming in second place, there was 6%, and then I guess out of Capcom, Square, and Ubisoft, Square was next up with 5%. Like I said, it was certainly an underwhelming E3, at least so far. We'll see what we get from Nintendo, but Microsoft clearly has had the best presentation, no questions asked, out of everyone who's shown up to E3. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Steve saying, I bet GameStop did that purposefully so their promo will be shared. You know what? I would too. If I was GameStop, every new Nintendo Switch game coming out, that end would be capitalized every single time. I might go to like font like 140 or something, just to make sure everyone sees it. It is interesting that it's that one capitalized letter that got their advertisement that they put out for trade-ins shared all over the place. I think even GameStop and like Switch was trending at one point on Twitter, and it's just because someone held the shift key, maybe by accident, when they were typing out new. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Was Halo Infinite and the multiplayer that they showed off there. Are you interested in it now? Are you excited for Halo? Maybe as a longtime fan? Let me know about that one. Also, what about Nintendo's big direct today? What are your last minute predictions? Drop them down in the comments. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.